This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome into the practice squad, and it's going to be I guess special's the word to use edition. We had to bring this guy in for a show at some point. I think he's commented on every single show we've done. We're like 30 episodes deep. So we're joined today for the whole show by Paul McPherson. Paul, what's going on?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on this week. I really appreciate it.
Listening to every damn show we ever do.
I was going to say, for those who don't know, Paul's been like the original backer of this podcast. He was the guy. Every time we did something, every time there was some way you could communicate with us or reference back to a topic, this guy was in on ground floor, just like, hey guys, it's this. Hey guys, it's that. I had this happen to me. I totally relate with you guys on this. He's been there since day one.
We've done 29 episodes, and I don't believe, Paul, you correct me if you know I'm wrong, I don't believe you've gone a single show without commenting on it.
I mean, maybe one, but even then, if it was one, then it was just because I was like, I got nothing to say this week. Just most times, though. Yeah, at least every other one besides maybe that one, but I can't even think of what one that would have been.
So we wanted to bring Paul on, and look, you know I'm not really a hockey guy, so we wanted to give him, he's going to be here for the whole show, but we wanted to give him 5 minutes here. And I'm going to be totally honest, Paul, I got nothing. I don't know about Stroz. Like, this is kind of going to be all on you. You wrote an article for Overtime Heroics the other day, just taking a look at the possible options for the Red Wings' 4th overall pick. Obviously, everybody pissed there are picking 4th, but wanted to give you a few minutes for anybody listening who cares about hockey.
Paul, don't feel bad. I care about hockey.
A lot of people care about hockey, but I think that the amount of people who care about the draft, maybe a little bit lower, Stroz. Is that fair?
No, if you're a Red Wing fan, you totally care because this is your future. This is your future. We have a segment planned right after this where we're going to talk about the future and who would be willing to cash out a superstar.
And we have to take the Red Wings out of it because they're the only one we believe in.
Exactly. He's the guy. He's the one and he's the only. So every Red Wings fan cares about this draft.
Yeah, so as Stroz said, we are going to be talking coming up in about 5 minutes. If you had to trust somebody in Detroit to give out a 10-year contract, or in this case a 10-year extension like Patrick Mahomes got, who would it be? We're taking Steve Yzerman out of the picture because we know the answer's him. So we're going to do that here in just a couple minutes. But, Paul, like, obviously first things first, like, who do you want them to get realistically at 4?
So, the reason that it's just so unfortunate that we ended up picking 4th is that this is one of those drafts where it was like, there was 3 top guys, There were 3 guys that were like, they're going to go 1, 2, 3, Lafreniere at 1, Stützle and Byfield either 2 or 3, depending on who you prefer. And it was kind of just a crapshoot. Like, there was like 7 guys who realistically could go with that spot. For me, there's really 2 guys in between, and it's basically which position would you prefer between the 2? The first guy is a defenseman by the name of Jamie Drysdale. He played for the Erie Otters in the Ontario Hockey League, and he is your prototypical modern offensive defenseman that can also play the two-way game. If you look at a guy, the 2 Rookie of the Year leaders this year are Cale Makar for Colorado and Quinn Hughes for Vancouver. And they're both smaller defensemen who are extremely strong skating and put up a lot of points. They're both at over 50 points this year, and Makar actually missed a good chunk of games this year and still had over 50 points. And for a defenseman, especially as a rookie defenseman, that's fantastic. And you hope a guy like Drysdale could be that guy. He was a point-a-game guy in Erie. Playing on one of the worst teams in the league, he was somehow a positive in plus-minus with a +9. When you're playing on a really not that good team and you still have a positive as the guy leading your team in ice time, you're a pretty solid player. And he's just, the way he uses his speed is so good, but he would be a guy you can pair with Seider, which is the guy everyone's excited about, Mo Seider. What's he going to do next year? That's your perfect, first line pairing right there. Seider and Drysdale, a bigger guy who can play stronger defense and a smaller guy who skates well and is great offensively. The other option, if you want to go forward, the guy I like the most at forward is another guy from the Ontario League named Marco Rossi. He is an Austrian guy. He's smaller at only 5'9", but he is one of the best defensive forwards in the entire draft. His penalty killing is snappy.
It's a defensive forward or an offensive defenseman?
Well, it's not just that he's a defensive forward. He also had the most points in the entire Canadian Junior League last year, including above Lafreniere, who's the consensus number 1 pick. So this is an ultimate two-way forward, guy who can play really strong defense. And he's 5'9", but he's not afraid to take on bigger guys. There's a clip in the article that I put where at 5'9", 170 pounds, he goes up against a 6'5" defenseman and wins the physical battle for the puck. And I just love that ability to play the two-way game and also put up points. Cause again, he led the entire Canadian juniors in points. He had 120 in 56 games. He had 81 assists playing on the best team in all of Canada in Ottawa. So those are the guys that are my favorites to look at based on this article too. Those are the first two I listed, and for good reason. They're the two I like the most for Detroit.
Is it fair to say Rossi is as close as you're going to get to a modern day power forward or a power skating center in the NHL right now?
I mean, I think he's definitely a great example of that. And, his comp as well, when you look at analysts and who they compare players to, his comparison is Braden Point, who is a guy that Steve Yzerman actually drafted in Tampa Bay and is that exact same type of player, a smaller guy. He can put up a lot of points for you. He was a 40 goal scorer in Tampa. But yeah, he is a fantastic defensive forward as well and pressures a lot and is a penalty killer. And that's exactly what you're going to get. And he really does fill that role that the Red Wings kind of do lack a little bit. They don't have a guy who can play defense and be your penalty killer while also being a scorer outside of maybe Dylan Larkin. And that's really it. So he can fill that role for Detroit if we take him.
Now, I'm curious. You said this is very clearly a three-person draft. I don't know what that means in the NHL. In the NBA, if you say this is a three-person draft, you're talking about these are three franchise-changing guys, and the step after that is significant. If you're talking about the NFL, the step's not always as big. The jump from tier 1 to tier 2 in the NFL, you're still going to find some game changers in tier 2. Is the NHL closer to the NFL where that tier jump is not as significant? Or is it more like the NBA where, being number 4 is falling from 1 to 4 is so big that it sets you back as a franchise? Because in the NBA, that's what it would be.
It's closer to the NFL. Basically, the difference between 3 and 4 here is the top 3 guys will all be most likely will be players in the NHL from day 1 for their team. And once you get to 4 in this draft, you're getting a guy who's either going to stay in juniors or in college with whatever team he's going to play for in college, or he'll play the year in the minors. Cale Makar, who again, as I mentioned, is one of the rookie of the year leaders. He was the 4th overall pick the same year. I believe it was the same year that we took it was the year before we took Zadina. And he was the 4th overall pick, and this is his rookie year. And that's the kind of thing you can see in the NHL. You're going to get great players there. It's just if you're impatient, you want to see them now, you're not going to see it now. They're not going to be the impact player at age 18 that you might get in the top 3.
Sure, do you have anything else you want to ask?
Yeah, if those two guys that you named, and when I went through your list, those were the two guys that really stood out to me. If those guys aren't there, who are the next guys that Yzerman might be looking at? And it's not so much that they're not going to be there because, again, the Wings are picking 4th, and the way this draft is going to play out, you already have your top 3 going. But if Yzerman goes in a different direction, other than those 2 players, who else do you think he could go and swoop up?
Well, there's 2 guys that I look at for that, and the first one is another forward, and it's Lucas Raymond out of Sweden. And the reason that I could see him going that way is he's already shown he likes guys who have already played in the pros. He took Seider last year when no one expected him to go that high, but he took a German defender who played professionally in Germany against grown men and had played against grown competition, and he went and took him when no one expected to. Raymond played in the Swedish Professional League. He has played against grown men. He didn't play against a bunch of kids in juniors the way that Rossi did or Drysdale did. So I could see him going him, and Raymond's a solid player as well. He's a fantastic skater, one of the fastest skaters in the draft. And the one thing he does offensively is at top speed, he can make plays. His biggest highlight is from the under 18 men's world championships where he was in the gold medal game and he at top speed burned a defenseman and then just rifled one top corner on the goalie that is the top goalie in this draft. And the ability to do that at top speed is something you rarely see. There's a lot of NHL players who can't do that. And so you could see him go that way. The other option could be he could go goalie, which I don't think most people expect to happen, and I wouldn't expect it to happen. But I know there's Red Wings fans who are going to be like, this is the year to do it, because Yaroslav Askarov is the best goalie prospect in over a decade. We haven't seen a goalie go in the top 5 since I think 2007 or something like that. And if we took him at 4, he'd be the highest taken goalie since 2003 when Marc-Andre Fleury went 1. So it's like if Yzerman doesn't trust any of the goalie prospects he has, he could go Askarov, but more than likely he won't. It's just kind of there to be like, there's potential if he really believes in him and really thinks he could be that goalie and be that number one for a decade. But I would think that if he doesn't go with either of those top two, it would be Raymond.
If the NHL draft is your thing, you can check out Paul's article at overtimeheroics.net. He takes a look at, is it all 7 guys you mentioned?
I took a look at 5, so I figured 7 at that point was a little bit just a little bit much. There's a couple other guys that you could look at, but I did just take a look at 5, and there's one name I didn't mention, so if you want to look at who that guy is, make sure to check out the article.
But clips and all over at overtimeheroics.net. I need to stop talking hockey because I'm going to fall asleep if we talk about the NHL draft any longer.
It was a great article.
I'm not saying it's not Paul's fault.
Give the guys props. It was a great article.
Thank you.
It's not Paul's fault. Hockey just sucks, and
dude,
I don't know what else to tell you about it.
How do I do a show with you?
Thank God, moving forward, we get to stop talking about hockey for a moment. Coming up in about 15 minutes, I'm going to use the words that Stroz put into our rundown. I forced a female friend to watch me play video games, and I kind of want to know how okay that was.
I can't wait for this segment.
But Patrick Mahomes, 10-year extension, under contract now at the Kansas City Chiefs for 12 years, massive deal. And Stroz thought of the question, which GM would you trust if you had to sign somebody? And I think the easy question is, what player would you sign to a 10-year deal? We're going to go a whole different route. Which GM would you trust to sign that deal? And we're going to take Steve Yzerman out of the equation because real quickly, before we go any further, if we left Steve Yzerman in the equation, would you guys both take him?
Yeah, I think so. He'd be my first option. I would probably, just to make it interesting, I'd go a little bit deeper though, and I'd try to find that second guy.
I don't even think it's close. So I'm not even a hockey guy, and I would have taken Steve Yzerman without a second thought. Paul, is that the direction you'd have gone to?
Oh yeah, for sure. And we've seen him do it when in Tampa. You know, we all thought Steven Stamkos might come to Detroit, and then he went and locked him up to that big deal. It's like, well, that dream's gone. So we've seen him do it elsewhere.
When was that?
I want to say it was 2015, maybe 2016, somewhere around there.
So I'm thinking there were a couple off seasons in a row where the Red Wings were linked to like big free agents and just never even got a chance. And that's really when I found myself, like, I had slowly drifted away from hockey, but like when they just kept getting locked out of major free agents, it was just like, I just wasn't there anymore. But so all three of us would think it's Steve Yzerman. So your choices instead are Bob Quinn, Al Avila, and I'm going to be honest, the Pistons just hired somebody, and I don't even know his name. Troy Weaver. Yep. So it's really tough to go the Pistons route. Like, I'll say it, first of all, you can't even sign a 10-year contract in the NBA. But if you could, I can't go that route. I don't know anything about the guy. And I actually had a friend text me to ask what I thought about the hiring. And the only thing that I could say was, look, I don't know anything about GM prospects in the NBA, but I think that they went to the perfect organization because Oklahoma City has hit on draft picks, and in particular, like, they've shown us how to build a team in the NBA when you can't sign free agents. Because even the move to go and get Paul George was a really good one. That's got to be the blueprint for how the Pistons build. So, like, I like the way they went for Troy Weaver, but if someone's handing out a 10-year contract, he's taken entirely out of the discussion for me.
See, I don't really feel that way. Now, I say that because Troy Weaver, like you said, he was part of that Oklahoma City Thunder team that helped bring in a guy like Russell Westbrook. He was also there and instrumental in signing Kevin Durant and James Harden. Now, I think the one thing that goes against Troy Weaver in all of this is he was also there when everything fell apart. You know, KD ends up opting out, and then I don't
know, man.
Well, they end up lowballing James Harden, and James Harden's like, nah, I'm good. And next thing you know, James Harden goes to the Rockets, and he becomes, a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA? So, he does have some negatives. He's not all pros. He does have some cons. But you can also then look at a guy like Al Avila if you wanted to. And Al Avila, I think, has done a good job eyeballing talent and picking them up in the draft. I think we all agree that Al Avila doesn't do a great job of trading his commodities. Al Avila hasn't been put in a spot where he has an open checkbook or really has been able to bring in any big name free agents. Everything Avila's done has been done on the cheap because this team is in rebuild mode. but I think he does have an eye for talent. So I think that's kind of a
It's too early to say that. It's too early to say that. I just don't feel like we can sit here and say he has an eye for talent, but he's picking at the top of the draft every year, and none of those guys have actually had to play in the MLB yet. Like, honestly, when you take Yzerman out of the equation, this is an impossible question. Because I don't hate Bob Quinn, but I also, like, his free agent signings have been brutal. I don't think Avila has proven anything. Troy Weaver, like, got hired a couple weeks ago. Like, this is like a blind shot in the dark. The answer is nobody, man. Like, I'm nobody. And if I had to go somewhere, I think my answer is Bob Quinn.
You're gonna go Bob Quinn. I knew you would. I
hate
you would.
it. But, like, I don't think you can go Troy Weaver.
I actually would, I would lean Weaver almost just because, you know, he can't get the 10-year deal. We know he can't sign a 10-year contract, but the NBA is the league that has the supermax. That's, you know, something he has. And from everything we've heard, based on things, he was instrumental not only, you know, drafting some of those players, he was the guy who went, guys, take James Harden when everyone else was like, you sure? So he's got an eye for talent based on everything we've heard. And while yes, some players left and players ended up leaving Oklahoma City, he convinced Russell Westbrook to sign a supermax in Oklahoma City and stay. He ended up trading him a year later. Well, he didn't, he was a part of that organization. He wasn't the GM, but he was a part of the organization that convinced Russell Westbrook to stay in OKC of all places for at least another year and sign that deal. So if he's going to maybe, you know, find that talent in the draft, maybe he has the opportunity to convince the guy, hey, sign a supermax here in Detroit, stay here.
Can I tell you that I don't actually think an eye for talent is what signing a 10-year deal is about? Because if you're signing a 10-year deal, chances are every single person in the league can tell you that that player is pretty damn good. I need you to be able to project whether or not he's so good that 10 years from now you're not going to be killing yourself for this. And, like, at the end of the day, when you sign a 10-year deal, I don't care if it's Patrick Mahomes. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. You're not signing him for years 9 and 10. Like, you're getting that done to keep him here for the foreseeable future, and you give him, like, think like the Miguel Cabrera contract. When that was signed, like, you knew you were probably not going to like the deal at the end of it, but it was just what you had to do. But I don't know if the eye for talent is what I'm concerned about. I need a guy who can project, is this going to kill us in the future? Is this going to tank our team, or is this something that we can overcome? And I can't stress this enough. I don't want it to be Bob Quinn either. Like, I don't trust anybody in this city to do this. But with Bob Quinn, you cannot question, he's managed the cap too well. Like, he leaves too much money to play with. And I trust that, like, he's not gonna bury the team on a bad 10-year deal. I cannot say the same for Al Avila because he hasn't spent money. And I can't say the same for Troy Weaver because I don't know anything about this guy. And Paul, you pointed out, like, what we hear he was instrumental in. I don't give a crap about that. I think that stuff's garbage. I think when you hire this guy, the way that you sell them is by saying, like, this is what he was instrumental in. Oh, hey, conveniently a list of all the good things. Here's the things he had no part in. Convenient. Like, that's just the way that's just PR in my book.
See, this is the one thing I find super interesting about Mahomes' deal and why I think it was so great. Because it totally protects the Chiefs. The Chiefs are so well taken care of in this, and Mahomes is too. So I think it's a win-win contract. So you're right. When we go to make this decision on who out of these three general managers in Detroit would be the guy who'd be the best fit to sign this deal, you do have to take all that into account. That's part of the equation. It's not just eyeballing talent, but it's also protecting your organization and putting them in a spot to where you're going to be successful. See, my issue with Bob Quinn is I don't necessarily think he's great at bringing in free agents, so addressing the need for talent and then projecting them to be decent. I think he does an okay job in the draft. I don't think he's lights out or he's great by any means. I do think he does a great job managing the cap. That is the one thing you can say about Bob Quinn that he gets a check plus in the column of, is he is exceptional at managing that cap. So well so that they've got a ton of money that they haven't spent this year. And I think it was 2 podcasts ago, you believe that the Lions, by the time this is all said and done, are going to look like geniuses when the salary cap scales back because you're not going to be able to have fans next season. So I think Bob Quinn and handling money and handling the funds of an organization is exceptionally great. But putting everything together and knowing what I know of these 3 men, I'm going to lean towards Troy Weaver. And I know that we don't have a good enough relationship with him. But I think we have a good enough relationship with both Al Avila and Bob Quinn to know that I am terrified of the decisions that they might make. And I'm willing to go with the total unknown. What's behind door number 3? I'm willing to go with that. And I'm willing to take Troy Weaver and let him make that deal.
I think the best case for Troy Weaver is we don't know that he sucks.
That's so bad. That's where Detroit sports are right now. It's horrible.
Yeah, it really is. One other thing I really thought of that we haven't really mentioned yet as well, when it comes to Al Avila, is not entirely on him. How much is Chris Ilitch going to be willing to open up the checkbook for these young players when they go and, start to hit their prime and they need an extension? Because we haven't seen Al Avila have to do that yet. And these young players, we see what they could be, but it's not just on him. We saw Mr. I open up the checkbook how many times to help pay for big free agents and big players to keep them in Detroit or bring them to Detroit? We don't know what Chris Ilitch is going to do when it comes to these young pitchers that we see, or, the young batters like Riley Green or Torkelson when it's time to go and hit their prime and to get signed. So that's something that I'm kind of thinking about. What will Chris Ilitch do more than what will Al Avila do? Well,
and I don't know that you're going to see him sign any 10-year deals, but if you operate under the assumption, and I will, that Ilitch isn't going to open the checkbook. Maybe they're not a bottom 5 franchise, but we will not see them in the top 5 of spenders. I refuse to believe that. And if that's the case, you have to assume he's going to have to play the fun game of deciding what guys they can afford to let walk and what guys you just have to get deals done with. We're never going to see Troy Weaver sign a major, like you said, he's going to have to decide the supermax, who's worth it and whatnot. And the answer is obviously right now, no one's even come close to worth it. But in terms of signing long-term deals to keep guys here, Al Avila is probably going to be the one we're going to get the best judgment in reality of whether or not he can do it.
Just kind of adds a little bit of a fun stat or a little bit of a fun fact to what you guys are saying, right? We're still paying Prince Fielder. He's not here, but he's still on the books and he's still collecting a paycheck from this organization. And that was a guy that Mike Ilitch went out and said, hey, we're going to back the Brinks truck up. We're going to bring him in. Obviously, it didn't work out here, and they quickly shipped him off to.
That's got to be done soon, right?
I think it's got 2 more years. I'd have to go back and look. I was messing around on Spot Track the other day, and it was I happened to kind of scroll down, and I was like, they're still paying this guy?
Well,
that's crazy.
Just got out of the Josh Smith deal, so
yeah, yes, which I thought was funny too.
One quick question to put you guys on the spot before we move on to Stroz's favorite part of the day.
I don't want to say your love life, but I love whatever you got going on with your relationships. It makes me so
Well, this
happy.
thing, I've talked to you a little bit about it, but this is going to be a unique topic for us. Is there a major contract that comes to your mind that the city of Detroit has done well in recent memory? Because when I think about it, let's take Stafford out, because I'm not looking to have the Stafford debate right now, but the Miguel Cabrera contract, I got why you did it, but I don't think it worked out. Obviously the Prince Fielder contract, bad. Trey Flowers, underwhelming in year 1. Just a lot of bad contracts in Detroit sports. I think you could argue Justin Verlander, not a good one. Going back a little ways, but you think of, are the Red Wings still paying Johan Franzen too?
Yep. Still giving him a little bit of money.
Everywhere you turn, it's bad contract after bad contract after bad contract in Detroit sports. Is there one a mega contract in Detroit sports you look at and say that was a hell of a move?
I can't think of one off the top of my head. Paul, do you have anything?
I mean, I was kind of thinking Verlander too, but even then I don't remember exactly how long and how big his contract was before it expired in recent years. But he had those couple of rough years, but other than that, he was good for most of it before we shipped him off. So maybe him?
I think he had 2 down years. And I can tell you from being here in Houston, that trade still comes up from time to time. And a lot of people here were concerned because he had those. Now, he had started to figure it out, but he had those down years and he had a lot of money. And I guess if he stays on the team, maybe you look at that as a positive. I don't know, man. I can't think of a major contract that has played out well and I'm not saying it's been miserable, but there's been a lot, when I look at the mega contracts that have been made in baseball, I think Miguel Cabrera, I think,
Alex Rodriguez.
I'm sorry, I'm talking Detroit. I think Miguel Cabrera failed. I think Prince Fielder did. Failed. And you had by the way, you had to do Cabrera. I had no problem with it, but I still think at the end of the day it was a bad contract. We'll call Justin Verlander a wash. The Pistons, no one's been like, I don't think anyone's gotten the super max for the Pistons, but no one's come, I guess you're paying Blake that via trade.
Andre Drummond had a pretty fat contract, and you were a little bit concerned that you weren't going to be able to move out from underneath that. But
the
you were.
NBA, it's so tiered based on like where you are in your career. I don't have a major issue with that one. I was just curious. We can move on. Coming up in about 15 minutes. There's been a tweet going around Twitter to tweet your worst sports moment of your life as boring as possible. Obviously, we're not going to do it as boring as possible. But I want to relive moments. And that's not just memories. That's not just lost, like, moments. I want short, sweet moments. And we'll look at some of the best ones as well.
Like the exact second that it happened.
Exactly. But I realized while I was doing this, I'm not even kidding that this was going to be a good topic. But now I feel like unsure of how to get into this. So I've been I've been dating this girl for like 3 weeks. You know,
are we terming it dating, or are we just going to say seeing?
It's kind of like I had this discussion with her actually like 2 days ago.
Did you ask her if you could bring this up on the show?
Yes, I did.
Awesome, good for you.
Because I had been saying seeing, and she said she really didn't like the word seeing, and she used the word dating. So it's let me put it this way: it's like far from anything official, but like it's not nothing, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense.
Okay. But anyways, so we've been dating for a few weeks, and she came over the other day, and I already had plans to play a game of Madden, and I was.
I want to know how this happens, right? So you're like, hey, why don't you come on over to my spot? Maybe we'll go grab dinner. Maybe we'll go grab drinks.
No, so
but before that, I've got to play some Madden.
I like the part where it sounds like he has it in his calendar, like, we're planning on playing.
So I realized when Stroz interrupted me that I needed to clarify something. I'm in a league with 7 other people. This is an 8-person league. And so there's an expectation of how often you play, and that expectation is approximately once per day. Occasionally, if something slows you up, not a big deal, but like, you're supposed to play about once per day. We get through about 7 weeks per week, or 7, game weeks per week. And so I have to play this game at some point, either, this was Tuesday? No. I think this was Tuesday. Yeah, so I had to play either Tuesday or Wednesday. And that's what I told her too. Because here's the thing, she was supposed to come over on Wednesday, and then on Tuesday, like, things have been a little sporadic with her. She ended up coming over Tuesday and Wednesday. And I was like, hey, so you can come over, but like, I have to play this game. So I want that to be clear here. I didn't say, do you want to come over, but I have to do this? Like, it was more of like, I think she asked me about hanging out, and I was like, screw it. Yeah, you can come over, but I have to do this. And, so
I think, wait, hold on. Inquiring minds want to know. Did you have a little B freak out moment in the middle of Madden?
No.
No, you were good?
No. I don't know why inquiring minds want to know that.
Did you rage just a little bit?
No. First of all, I won my game.
So good for you. Awesome.
Stop talking down to me like that.
Look, I like how Stroz expects failure.
No, I don't really rage. I don't want to say never, but like, Madden doesn't get me the same way Fortnite does.
I don't even know what that says about you, but I love it.
So here's the thing too, like, I didn't even share, like, there's so much to this. She said she wanted to watch me. I'm gonna guess you're gonna choose not to believe that. And I don't blame you. I'm skeptical myself. But
I'm dying over here.
When I started my game, I have like a little corner market at my apartment complex. It's literally right across the street, like a 2-minute walk. And she, like, right when I started the game, she walked over there, forgot to bring her mask, so she had to walk back, grabbed her mask, walk back again. Like, she didn't even come back. She left when I started the game. By the time she got back, it was the 4th quarter, like, it was almost over. And then when I finished, she's like, "You're already done?" Like, she's like disappointed that she didn't get to watch more. And again, I'm skeptical too.
She timed this up perfectly. Does she have a brother? Does he play Madden? Is she like, roughly a game of Madden takes about 15 minutes?
No, I don't know. She does have a brother, but
she's like, I'll stay in the market for 12 and then I'll head back. It'll be great.
But
I'll act disappointed, make him feel good about himself, and
well, it was great, like, for watching the 4th quarter too, because like, she was like trying to root for me, but not entirely sure what was going on. So yeah, the reason I bring it up is I want to know if that was okay. Like, was that move okay?
Paul, I'm gonna let you have the floor on this one.
I mean, with the situation, at least, like, you let her know before she came over, and you didn't just, the way I was expecting this to go, that she came over and you're just like, hey, by the way, I'm doing this first, so, yeah. And she's just
no. I mean, not only that, I think it's important to note that I didn't, like, we originally did not plan on hanging out on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, came about, this whole thing has been very, very sporadic. Like, I think this is the first time I brought it up on the podcast, but I believe I mentioned to you, Stroz, that our first date was supposed to be at a bar. It then changed to ice cream, and then we walked over to Applebee's. So, like, the theme of this whole thing has been, like, I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. Like, she might, like, show up at my door in 5 minutes, and you guys might meet her. Like, that's how sporadic things have been. So she wasn't even supposed to come over. I already had plans, and I just wanted to, like, warn her that, like, these plans aren't getting canceled.
Sorry, babe. My Madden game comes way before you, so you're just gonna have to sit on the couch and enjoy what you're about to get for the next 15 or 20 minutes. If I rage out, just deal with it.
It didn't happen.
Sorry, babe.
This time, it didn't happen.
Right this time.
So, Stroz, where are you at? You were excited to do this.
I'm so excited. I'm like, I've been looking forward to this all day. You have no idea. I want to let you know what I got going on in my life right now. I absolutely hate my job. Me and my boss got into it really bad the other day. I got sent home from work. I got written up. It has been absolutely bananas. So when we were putting this rundown together, I was like, yes.
I was literally playing video games. She was out at the corner store, and I was playing the game, and I was like, Stroz is going to want to talk about this so bad. And I literally finished the game. I kid you not. She was sitting right next to me. I finished the game, shut off the Xbox. I was like, okay, I have to ask you something. Can I talk about this on my podcast? She's like, what? Talk about what? I was like, the fact that I made you watch me play a video game. I was like, no one will know who you are, and I won't use your name, but, like, just this story. And she's like, oh, go for it. And defend yourself. I'm on your side.
I need her to listen to this podcast. Like, just this section, because I know she doesn't care about Detroit sports, but she needs to listen to this segment specifically. And, like, you need to sit there with her when it all gets presented. Because I want her reaction. If we could bring her in so she could watch all this, so I could watch her facial.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
It'd be fantastic. I don't think you were criminally in the wrong. But this is what I would say. Maybe next time you're like, hey, why don't you come over at about this time? I've got a couple things I've got to take care of, I don't know, around the house, or I won't be home until roughly this time. And just kind of put her off. That way when she walks in the door, you don't have a controller and a headset on your head.
I didn't. We hung out for a few hours before I even played the game.
Well, I mean, I guess at that point she knows what she's getting herself into.
So, like, cause in your scenario, what happens is,
she, like, showed up and you're like, cool, I gotta play this game.
Well, but I'm not even saying that. I'm saying, like, if I wait and she doesn't come over until afterwards, like, I still work in the morning.
So, like, are your dates done by, like, 9 o'clock? Cause I know you have to get your beauty sleep. And, like, how much longer do you have to work mornings? I wanted to follow up with you on this.
No, not the stupid mornings. Not the stupid.
Oh, okay.
Like, just, like, I get to work at 9.
Oh, okay.
No, they don't.
Well, you have to be tucked in and in bed by midnight.
I'll tell you this. The last 2 times I saw her, she didn't leave until after I would normally be asleep.
Oh, look at you, making sacrifices for the old lady already. Love it, B. Look at you.
You gotta pick and choose your battles. And,
that's right.
And I've chosen the Madden battle, but not the sleep battle.
Who needs sleep anyways? I mean, for real.
But see, Paul, like, I don't know if, I actually have no idea how much we've talked about it on this podcast. Stroz knows, like, I do care about my sleep a lot.
He needs 8 hours. Otherwise, he is a disgruntled little bear for sure.
I mean, if you listen to last week's episode.
I thought it was your best episode. I mean, this is now number 30, and I thought episode 29 was fantastic.
I just mean, you know how much my sleep matters. So
your
we're going on.
Matters so much to you.
Are we going down the middle between, well, I guess there's only 2 of us, but are you both agreeing that this was okay? This is fair play.
I mean, I think it was okay. Fair. Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on in a second, but I'm going to probably regret this.
Look, yeah, put it out there. Let everybody else jump in and join.
Oh, this isn't yeah.
If you guys think that B was in the wrong, let us know. Or even if you think B was in the right, let us know.
Yeah, especially if you think I was in the right. Let us know.
at Brendan Riley _ at Adam R STROZ. And Paul, what's yours? At Pauly, what is it? Pauly,
I don't know either.
It's at PaulyMac7, PAULLYMAC, 7.
There it is. I knew it had a 7 in it.
Before we move on,
you guys are lucky I get ours right.
To our best and worst moments in sports, Stroz, this is what I may regret, but I'm going to do it. I want to give you a free floor for 2 minutes if you have any other questions or comments you want to make regarding the situation as a whole.
So I have a lot, but I don't know if you'll answer them, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I don't want to make you mad.
That's why I want to give you 2 minutes, and I'm going to trust you. Look, the reason we work so well together, Stroz, is because you pushed me a little bit past my comfort zone, but I won't let you go too far. I'm going to trust you in 30 episodes together that you've learned what too far is.
Oh, that laugh.
Right. I have so much stuff going on in my head.
Yeah, look, if you go too far, that's on you. That ends the segment. That's on you.
That's on me.
No.
Okay. So we're gonna play baseball, okay? So I'm assuming you've got to first base, and I'm considering first base making out.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you got to second base?
Yeah, that's gonna end the conversation.
Oh, see that quick, eh?
Dude, I'm not sharing anything like that. I thought you would know better than that.
2 questions in. Look at that. Wrap that segment up. Let's move on.
All right. So as I mentioned, I'm not gonna lie. I'm bad about this. You guys have seen the worst sports moments going around Twitter, right?
Yeah.
I have not.
Okay. So I should have given the credit to somebody. I have no idea where it started, but it's social media. So it's kind of what happens. You lose your credit when it's on social media. Basically, I want the individual moments, the smallest moments, and the not the memories, but the feelings they bring to you, both positive and negative. We'll start with positive, because I think the negative is going to be more fun. Anything come up for either of you two right off the top of your head?
Oh, for sure. For positive, when Maglio hit his home run, like I remember where I was, what I was doing. I was getting ready to go over to my buddy's house. He was having this like weird impromptu. It wasn't really a bachelor party, but he was like getting married a couple days later, and we were all just kind of playing cards and drinking that night. So I was watching it at my house in Hamtramck. I was in my underwear, getting ready to go jump in the shower, and I'm watching Maglio smash this home run to send the Tigers on to play, I think it was for the World Series then. So I was so pumped. I was so excited, and it set the tone for the rest of the night. Later on that night, I ended up banging a chick at my buddy's house. It was great.
That is so incredible, like the memories that come with that, because I have the same idea with that play in specific that like, I remember, have I ever mentioned that I was in Lego robotics in elementary school?
Not. At least for me.
Well, I was.
Wait, hold on. Wait, before we go any further,
we don't have time, man.
What was Lego's robotics?
I don't know that we have time for this, because Lego robotics is the coolest thing that's ever existed, and it shouldn't be just for elementary schools. It is literally making robots out of Legos.
We should have Paul back next week for this one segment right here in the middle. What B did in elementary school.
Honestly, I don't know how the hell we do it, but if you want to break down what Lego robotics is at some point, I'm down. But anyways, I remember I was at like a Lego robotics, I don't know what you'd call it, practice, meeting, whatever.
You guys are gangster. It was like super serious.
Oh yeah. It was like a competition. But the day of that game. And I remember like we were not allowed to watch the game because it was like close to the competition date. And I remember like the parent who ran Lego robotics was like going up and down to watch the game for moments, but wouldn't let us watch it. And we're down here like on a computer, like refreshing the box score to like try and keep an eye on it. And I remember going home like 7th, 8th, 9th inning, like very late in the game that I went home. So I watched none of the game. I stressed through that game on a laptop or something like that, only to go home and watch the end and see that play. And that's the thing. When I think of the positive moments, there's not many, man. Like the 04 Pistons mean a lot to me, but I mean, there's the block was incredible. And that's kind of what I mean by the moments. Like, I should be able to say 2 or 3 words and you should know what I'm talking about. So, like, the block is a big one. I don't think you're going to know this one, but the shot in that same – if I said the shot from the 04 Pistons, could you figure out what I'm referring to?
Chauncey Billups.
Yeah, the Chauncey half-court shot. And they lost that game.
That one.
But those moments, like, were the only special moments. I can't remember an individual moment. In fact, the biggest moment I remember in the 2004 finals was actually the Kobe shot to send it into overtime in game 2, which, again, they lost.
Well, the biggest thing that I've noticed, kind of looking at Detroit sports over the years, whenever we win championships, we blow out our opponents. Like, the Pistons, 2004 Pistons, that was in 5. The Red Wings was 2 sweeps in 5, and then obviously the 2008 Red Wings was in 6, but those series aren't close. So it's hard to be like, yeah, this is a big moment because they're all just blowouts anyway. And it's not like if they didn't hit that shot, the series is over and they lose. It was like, oh, they hit that shot. Oh, it goes another game,
Well, and I think as you point that out, the 2 that I mentioned for the 2004 Pistons, you had the block in a series that was tight as hell. The half-court shot in a series. The Pistons fell down 3-2 in that series before winning it to the New Jersey Nets. Those are both much tighter series.
Yeah.
But I think through the Red Wings, positively, I don't really have a moment that comes to mind. The
I
Tigers
have one for the Red Wings.
Yeah, go ahead.
My positive moment I think about the Red Wings is in the 2002 playoffs, and it was that Game 7 against Colorado, the Statue of Liberty goal, Patrick Waugh putting his hand up and dropping the puck, and we score en route to a 7-0 win. That moment is like my favorite moment from when I was really a little kid, was seeing that. I was 8 at the time, and that was just like, that just happened. Holy crap. And that was Waugh's final game too. That was his final game, was losing 7-0 to the Red Wings.
And I remember that game for that reason, the 7-0, but I don't remember any individual plays.
I remember that moment. What about when Darren McCarty beat the living crap out of Claude Lemieux? Like, I remember that
You're
moment.
the only one, old ass.
I actually, my dad recorded the game, so we watched it all the time on VCR when I was a kid.
I'm that old.
Yes.
It's on VHS.
I was 3 when that happened, so.
I would say 96?
97.
97? Yeah, dude, I was 4.
Oh,
yeah,
my bad.
3.
Oh man, you guys are so young.
If I was watching
I'm like 100
game with my dad wouldn't do anything, but if I was watching that Red Wings game, like, with my family, my mom probably would have flipped the channel.
Why? Because it's too violent?
Yeah, I don't think she would have wanted me to watch.
Oh man, it was
my mom
so great.
watch Cartoon Network.
Dudes were getting kneed in the face. It was sweet. It was such a great moment.
Can I tell you that's one of the more overrated moments in Detroit sports history?
Why?
Because it's a fight, dude. Chill. I'm not watching boxing. I'm watching.
No.
We still celebrate Turtle Day to this day.
And we do. Here's the deal. This is why it was not overrated.
I'm not saying it's bad, just overrated.
You have to realize what went into this. So you had everything that took place the year prior in the playoffs. And this came down to their final meeting that season. This was so far gone in the season, most people had forgot about it. Like, they're like, all right, cool, they're just gonna play. And the Wings, the thing is, the Wings needed to win that game. Like, they had to win that game. And they were losing that game. Darren McCarty gets into this fight. He goes and serves some minutes in the penalty box. He really should have been kicked out of the game because he instigated the whole fight. He comes back to score the overtime winner. Like, there's no way it's overhyped. There's so much that went into that one moment that then spilled out into that game, which then trickled through that playoffs. It's crazy.
I encourage you to there's a SB Nation has a beef history on that rivalry, the Avs-Wings rivalry, and it shows everything that led up to that. And like, for anyone who isn't educated on everything leading up to it, that's a great way to learn. But actually, my favorite, my biggest positive memory actually isn't a pro one. So it was Michigan basketball, 2013. I was a freshman at Michigan at the time. I was on a train heading back for Easter weekend with my family from Ann Arbor to Kalamazoo as Michigan versus Kansas in the NCAA tournament is on. And we had one guy who could get a connection on that train to stream the game. And we all of us Michigan students heading home for Easter, just losing our minds as Trey Burke hits the 3 to send it to overtime from 30 feet. That moment, like, none of us knew each other, but we're all gathered around one phone and losing our minds that we had just tied it. We can beat Kansas. Holy crap. What is happening? And it was insane.
I would say I have 3 Michigan memories.
But do you remember where you were at for that?
Oh, hell yeah. Game? Hell yeah.
So, what were you doing?
Funny enough, I was at a watch party for that game at the same house where my Lego Robotics coach was. Now, obviously at that point in my life, not in Lego Robotics, but like In fact, that friend whose house that was, he lived in Houston. He's from Michigan, obviously, but he just left Houston last weekend.
Oh, wow.
He had been here for 3 years. So like, I'm still to this day pretty good friends with that guy. But I was over at his house. Him and his brother and his sister all went to U of M. So they were pretty, into it. I've always been a casual U of M fan, but that was like really the first deep run, of what you would consider like this era of Michigan basketball. Mm-hmm. I remember, that shot. I just remember the thought of what the hell is he doing? Mm-hmm. Like that was a Steph Curry moment, right? Like what the hell are you? Oh my God.
Went in. Yeah.
But I would say there are 3 Michigan memories like that. For me, that one, Jordan Poole, which I was, working that game in radio. I was running the board for that. And I remember watching that shot go up. Difference now. Trey Burks went up and I was like, no way in hell. Jordan Poole's went up and I'm a big Jordan Poole guy, was like, no way. Like that's in. Like I just knew that one was good. I think that was over Houston if I remember correctly.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was.
And so I remember where I was for that one. And then the other one, this goes way back, was every Braylon Edwards touchdown against Michigan State in that, I believe, triple overtime game. I think that's when I became a college football fan. Like, watching that made me fall in love with Braylon Edwards.
So the Trey Burke shot, I was at a weekend card game where we had 2 big screen TVs on. I was there with my dad and I was there with a couple of my uncles. And it was my stepmom's brother's house. And there was a bunch of people. It was a massive poker party. And I remember being at the table playing and everybody stopped what they were doing. Like the game had just stopped. So everybody could be transfixed on what was going on with the final couple seconds of this game. And I remember standing up in front of my place at the table and just had my hands on the table, just leaning forward and just like, what's he doing? Oh my God. It's gonna go. It went in! I just like freaked out and I ran around and like all of us were hugging each other because everybody's a big Michigan fan. It was absolute insanity. Now conversely, some of my worst memories are Michigan memories.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a couple of those.
Like Trouble with the Snap, right? Trouble with the Snap. I went out with my buddy Scott. We're at a restaurant called Art and Jake's off of Hall Road and Mound, and I ended up ordering a steak at a bar, which don't ever do that. And I'm mashing into this steak, and I basically set my silverware down to watch Michigan roll on to a victory and beat MSU for the first time what felt like forever. And then you have Trouble with the Snap. And then you watch as the ball gets taken all the way back to the end zone, and Michigan State ends up winning the game. I was so disgusted and so upset. I set my silverware down, I pushed my plate to the middle, and I didn't touch the rest of my steak dinner, and I was so upset.
So I have a funny story about that game. I was doing play-by-play.
Nothing funny about it, B. There's nothing funny about it, B.
Fair enough. See, that's where like I'm the right level of Michigan. Like I wish I could feel the way about all teams that I do about Michigan, because like I still really enjoy the wins. The losses just don't hurt me the same way. But I was doing play-by-play for Oakland Club football, and look, the truth is, even if it wasn't club football, most Oakland University people prefer Michigan or Michigan State to Oakland. I am not one of those people, but most people are. Anyways, I had to miss the game to call the club football game. And so there's the process of like trying to not know what's going on there as I'm doing the game and people around me. Like anyone who's at this club football game, by the way, club football at Oakland University is like a thing since they don't have a Division I team. Like people go watch the club football team. It's kind of weird, but like it just is.
Look, when I was going to school there was a petition because one of the founding members of the university outlawed it because too many people were going to get hurt. And then there was a huge petition to actually get a club football team. It was nuts.
Anyways, like people do care about it. But so like trying to, bubble myself, I did successfully and I got home and my dad, not wanting to spoil it, tells me it was a great game. It's absolutely worth watching. That's all he says.
Your dad's such a good man.
Kind of similar to me. In that, casual Michigan fan. Probably, honestly, maybe a little more emotionally invested than I am. But I actually sat and watched on my phone. I don't really know why. I definitely could have watched it on TV, but I just watched it on like ESPN Plus or whatever, or not Plus, whatever it was, Watch ESPN back then. And I had a feeling the whole time that Michigan State was going to win based on like the way that my dad had been talking. And I was just so confused coming up on that punt. I was like, this is over. Like, punt return for a touchdown maybe? I was not ready for what happened. Like, that was just like unbelievable. So I didn't watch it live, so I was almost a little more prepared for it in a way. But man, I remember like literally ball goes in the end zone, Watch ESPN shuts off because Watch ESPN doesn't have the post game. Like, just, it's over, done. Like, my phone goes back to the home screen and I'm like, well, that was abrupt.
Well, like, for me, that day, everything leading up to that day was like was really rough. Like, it was one of those days, it's like nothing can go right. So it's like, all right, well, maybe Michigan State will somehow turn that around for me. Maybe Michigan will actually win. And when it got to we got the stop and got the ball back, it was like, all right, cool. Like, how can we screw this up, And I remember seeing specifically Jalen Rose tweet out talking about, all right, Michigan's a national title contender now. Look at us. I went, okay, he just jinxed it. Something absolutely insane's about to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how we could screw this up. But because he tweeted that something's going to happen, I wasn't prepared for what it was. I was not emotionally ready for it. And I was very upset. I threw things. I yelled a lot. I'm sure neighbors were like, what is going on in that apartment? But it was just like, how did that just happen again? How do we lose it again? How does this always happen to Michigan in anything where it's like, we blow it. We lose on something big, like losing on big shots or on last minute plays in football games. It's kind of like, why? Why did it have to happen again?
Now, can you guys remind me?
Last minute plays. Speaking of last minute plays, do you guys remember? Well, you guys don't remember. You guys are too young. But the Cordell Stewart game against Colorado. Yeah, you guys were way too young for that. You guys are way too young. This was when Gary Moeller was the head coach of Michigan, and this was supposed to be a very, very good team. They had a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. Cordell Stewart makes this miraculous play at the end of the game for a touchdown, and Michigan ends up losing. I was a small child. I remember sitting, actually I was laying upside down. I had we had our couch, and I was like standing on my head, but like my butt was on the couch, if you could kind of picture me being flipped upside down. And I was watching the end of the game that way. And once it was over, I like flipped over onto my knees, faced the couch. I was so pissed off. I got up, walked outside, and I think I ended up throwing something at a wall because I was so upset and so angry. You're right. Paul, you hit the nail on the head. Dumb stuff happens all the time with Michigan in football.
For the record, I was 1 year old when that happened.
You're so young.
So that was the year I was born then.
Yeah, 1994.
I like calling them 1,000 boys. That's the one thing this podcast today has told me. I'm ancient.
It's funny because I don't think in the early podcasts, like in the early episodes, we didn't really know each other as well yet. I don't think I realized the age gap. Because I don't know that it comes through in the way we behave.
No, it's because I'm like a child. I'm a toddler.
I think you could make the case that it actually comes through the opposite way.
Yes, you seem much more mature.
I did want to ask another Michigan moment. Did that Ohio State game, that first down, the debatable first down, was that the same season as Trouble with the Snap?
No, I think that was the
following year.
I can't remember.
It might have been the following year, but at that time. So that was. Yeah, so at that time, I was in a relationship where every rivalry weekend in college football, they did their Thanksgiving. So like, I remember watching that at their Thanksgiving and just, that actually hurt me more than Trouble with the Snap because it was so late in the season. Like, that was, you win this and you're going to the Big Ten title game. And that play was the game.
I wasn't even watching it was the issue too, so I couldn't see. I was listening to the radio in the car because that weekend my younger brother had a hockey tournament for Thanksgiving weekend in Chicago. So we were on the way to a game in the car listening on the radio. So we have no idea if he's actually short or not. We have no clue. We have no way of seeing it.
You just had Jim Grandstander freaking out, right?
Exactly. And it was just like, when we couldn't even get Grandstander, it was a national call because we were in Chicago, so we were on Sirius radio, so we weren't even getting the Michigan home broadcast. And it was just like, we had no idea, and there was no help from the announcers. They had no idea either. So we was kind of like, when they said he wasn't short, it was kind of like, all right. And I kind of look at Twitter, and people are like, he was short. What are they talking about? But they're all Michigan fans, so I'm like, I don't know if he was short or not. I have no clue.
So my honest worst moment is probably going to sound weird, but obviously I'm going to go to football. And I think you think about the flag being picked up against Dallas in the playoffs. But mine actually comes the following season. And, 11-5 the year before, you probably should have beat Dallas. You're coming off all this hype. Week 1, you go up 21-0 against San Diego. And you're just on this high as a Lions fan where like you think that this team might actually be really good. And they lose in week 1. And then they lose in week 2. Or I'm sorry, they lose in week 2. And then they lose in week 3. And all of a sudden you're 0-3. You're going into Seattle. You had these high expectations and you're so close to the season being over in week 4. And as much as I want the Lions to be good, nothing hurts like knowing your season is over that early on. Like, let me enjoy football for at least a chunk of the year. And when the Lions, I believe, on Monday night, go into Seattle with 0-3, Stafford's leading them down the field to take the lead with time expiring. Calvin fumbles into the end zone. They bat it out, which we later learn is illegal. The Lions lose, fall to 0-4. The season's over after these high expectations. And like, the way to describe the way I felt about that, I was doing college radio at the time. That's how I remember it was a Monday night because my shows were on Tuesdays. And my co-host walks in. I'm like sitting there ready to do prep. My co-host walks in, throws his backpack across the room, and just dies in the chair. And I was like, that is how I feel. Like, I felt defeated because I had such high expectations, and the season was done in a month. Like at 0-4, that's it. 0-3 is tough, but I'm an optimistic person. I could keep hope alive at 0-3. At 0-4, it's done. You lost 5 games last year. You've lost 4 in a month. That's actually probably my most painful memory. Either that or the Fail Mary where Jim Caldwell was waiting for the pass back and forth, which that I believe was the same season. Yes, it was. The Lions lost that one later on in the year. They ended up finishing that season 7-9. 2 absolute brutal heartbreakers. I remember leaving that game. I think I lost my voice on the way back to the car. You ever go to a Lions game and see that drunk asshole who won't shut the hell up after the game?
Yes.
I was stone cold sober, that guy. Everybody walking out with us probably wanted me to shut the hell up, but I was furious. Those 2 are honestly, they might be my worst 2 sports memories, and they both came in at a 7-9 Lions season.
What about Big Shot Bob? Like, cause you're a huge Piston fan. And like that 04 Pistons team is like the first team you've ever seen win a championship. So it holds a real special place. That 2005 team was when I say like seconds away from winning back-to-back championships, they were like mere seconds away from winning back-to-back championships.
I don't know why that one doesn't sit with me the same way. It's probably just because of how young I was. And at that age, when you have already won in 04, getting there in 05 and losing is heartbreaking. But it's just not the same. You know what I mean? Like, nowadays, I don't think that's the way I would react. But as a 6th grader, I believe at the time, like, they had already won in 04. They got there in 05. They got to game 7. Like, it didn't sting the same way because you had already done so much. And again, if I was 10 years older, I don't think that would have been the case. It still sits with me as a negative memory, but not the same way. And I know, like, I think that one sits with Pistons fans more than probably anything. Like, I think even if you go back, Stroz, you go back, like, you're older, Mr. Old Man of the podcast. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that even comes close?
They call me Captain Gray Balls because I got nothing but gray hair on my balls.
Who was they?
You. It's you. It's really just you. You've never called me that once.
Do the women call you?
All the ladies call me that. They say it looks distinguished. No, man, because when Jordan ended up beating him, you kind of knew it was over for that team, but it didn't feel as heartbreaking because, like I said, you were moments away from hoisting another championship, and Robert Horry stuck a dagger through your heart, and San Antonio ended up coming back to win the rest of that series. So I don't think, if you're a Pistons fan, I don't think anything hurts quite like that one does. I don't think there was anything before that really hurt like that one did. And I don't know, like, so Paul, you're a huge Red Wing fan. So painful moments for you. For me, the 2009
yep,
team,
that's where I was too.
When Lidstrom hit the post, it was that moment that my heart ripped into 2, and I found myself crying on in the middle of Monroe Street in downtown Detroit.
I think you've told that story.
I have.
Yes,
I was inconsolable. Like, I was so heartbroken because I knew that it was over. Like, that team was done. That was as close as we were going to get. And we were legitimately, I say we, like I played on the team. We were legitimately like 3 centimeters away from going into overtime. And it was just a doink off the post. And I was like, that's it. I'm done. Like, we're done. I can't believe this. I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up if you hadn't. I was going to bring that up because, like, just the other day, Butchergross on his Twitter posted a still image of 1.5 seconds on the clock, Nick Lidstrom with the puck on his stick, and Fleury on the complete opposite side of the net. And you're just like, as a Red Wings fan, you know, I was 15 at the time, and I'm just standing there like, we're going to tie it, we're going overtime. And then it didn't go in. I was like, oh, we lost.
And like,
it was a moment of high,
well, if I remember correctly,
pure depression so quickly.
If I remember correctly, because I was still pretty into the Wings back then, that was like a very high, like it wasn't just that shot. It was a very, like there was a lot going on. Wasn't that a very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's like
scrum.
Explosive.
It was a big, like, it was like a big scrum in front. Like it was like the puck was bouncing around. Like
yeah,
a lot of
like,
pucks fired.
Like it just felt like you could get lucky and something could fall.
Yeah, exactly. And when it came to Lidstrom, it was like, well, there it is.
Yeah, you go back to that team. He was like, there were 3 guys you wanted the puck on their stick in that moment, and he was probably 1A. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else was like 1B and 1C, and it's Datsuk, and then it was Zetterberg. And those were the guys that you wanted to have the puck. And Lindstrom, in his house, at the top of the point, just gotta bury it, bro. Like, you've done it time and time again. Or just put it on, and maybe it'll bounce funny and go in, because the whole net was open. And then no. And then heartbreak. And then you have a grown man sobbing.
We have gone way long, so we do need to wrap this up here shortly. Is there anything else either of you have to get in before we wrap it up?
I'm good.
I mean, we didn't mention App State, but App State. I'll just say App State, and everyone knows.
App State was the beginning of Big Ten Network, by the way. So a lot of people didn't have that yet. I was one of them. I listened to the end of that game on the radio. Like, talk about being an old man. I'm not kidding. I didn't listen to the whole game. I just didn't care enough, but I assumed they'd blow them out. But I listened to the blocked field goal for a touchdown on the radio.
I actually had a soccer tournament. I had a travel soccer tournament that weekend, and we got into the car after a game I had just in time for the field goal attempt. And I did I just mishear them? Surely I did not just hear that, right. There's no way we're losing to this team. And then the kick is blocked. I'm like, what? Like, I still don't understand what I was listening to. Like, surely I misheard something. Like, that's not possible. No way.
That happens 1 in every 10,000 games. Yeah, no, that's a good one if you want to stick to Michigan. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it at App State. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate you guys having